Before we jump into today's episode, quick disclaimer that this podcast isn't therapy. It's educational, not individualized advice. Everyone's brain and story are different, so if you're struggling, reach out to a licensed pro who can support you.
We talk about the stuff no one dares. ADHD, sex, and the science that cares. Real talk, raw truth, and the stories that heal. Welcome to ADHD Reality with Dr. B.
Welcome back to ADHD Realities, everybody. Today I have a guest that I am very excited to have here because I get to talk about things that are quite misunderstood, how it even then is connected to ADHD. So before I get in, I always like my guests to introduce themselves, give us a little background of who you are and why I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you, Dr. Leanne. My name is Elle Stanger. I'm a certified sex educator. I'm certified by the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists, also known as AASECT. Such a mouthful. Before that, I have been published noon online as a model and writer since 2005. And I have been strip club working full time, except for COVID shutdowns, since June of 2009. So I am approaching my 17-year anniversary in a few months.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I formerly wanted to work catching the bad guys, the sex traffickers, the rapists, the abusers. So when I was a little kid, I wanted to be Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs. And I thought the route to that was, to be a detective or an investigator, you have to go through investigations or be a cop. So I started my education in criminology before I was a sex worker, a stripper, an escort, a phone sex operator, a porn maker, a fetish provider, a dominatrix. I do all these things now.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this. I'm loving this. Keep going.
Good. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few, but they might come up. So halfway through getting my degree, I realized that the systems that be, policing, courts, social work, a lot of it does not help the people who are most in need. It's corruption of power and follow the money situation. And a lot of the practices we have in place for monitoring people, arresting people, charging them, whatever, don't help them do better, don't help them heal, don't address the reasons why some people do crime in the first place. And also, something we've learned over the years as we get wiser and look at civil rights issues is that just because something is illegal doesn't mean it's actually harmful or immoral. So, one of the clearest examples I can give is gay marriage, we call it. So that is still illegal in a lot of places. Homosexuality is criminalized a lot of places in the world. And, until recently, it was illegal for some people to get married. And so that's one of the things where it's like, oh, it's not, it's allowed now, but it's still heavily stigmatized. So I realized halfway through getting my bachelor's of criminology from Portland State, which I did complete, but that I wanted to pivot into harm reduction rather than trying to, supposedly find the bad guys after someone's already been raped, robbed, murdered, killed. Let's address and maybe prevent the reasons why this stuff happens in the first place. So when I started stripping, it was 2009 again, and it was like after the 2008 recession. I started because the economy was so bad, I couldn't get hired anywhere. And I told myself this will be like a 6-month gig, and then I'll go back to my regular plans. And I just fell in love with I beat disordered eating through stripping. That's like a whole other thing, but I started to take care of my body. I started looking around and seeing that people are attracted to all bodies. People are attracted to things we've been told we're not or that we shouldn't be. I'm getting emotional.
It's okay. I've cried
Thank
before
you.
on my podcast, so I can
Oh,
cry with you.
I am autistic. Okay, good. Good. That makes me feel better. So currently, I do a lot of kinds of sex work because I see how it helps people. It is can be lucrative. Um, Even if I wasn't pushed by capitalism, I really have always joked that I will give someone a hand job to do my dishes. Like some labor is transactional. Also, I've been able to lean into my queerness. There's so many reasons why I enjoy sex work, and I see how it can truly benefit people on all sides, providers, clients, our family members, even venue operators, when we all understand consent, work in tandem, understand like a lot of the aspects about transactional, pleasure receiving, whatever. And yet, a lot of the touch industries that so many of us are interested in, or participate in are looked down on. So much of adult work and touch and sex stuff is looked down on. And so that leads people to do harm because they're operating from lack of education,
Yeah.
shame. So I do a lot of work to try to make people's sex and lives safer and happier through education, media, um, and I have to do very particularly to do sex work in those spaces and do education in those spaces because I worked this hard to get certified, so I'm not trying to get, in trouble now. So I do a lot of work to be compliant and I have to be really mindful. So that's part of the dance too.
Well, I think there was a lot of things that came up in my mind as you were just introducing yourself. And I think the first thing that came to my mind that I want to latch on to first is when you think also of this idea, just because something's illegal doesn't mean it's actually wrong or bad. And you brought up, homosexuality, for instance, in the DSM-4, it was considered a disorder. And we know that even in the medical jargon and the DSM, that constantly is changing, not just because of research, because of social constructs and how people view things and what is considered okay and not okay. And so when I think to myself also, when we have something that is considered illegal, how much of it is truly unpacking the objectivity sides of things versus a belief system? And, I had Dr. Eric Sprinkle on my podcast a while ago, and I fucking love him.
Fun.
And we talked heavily about, objectivity versus subjectivity and how so much of the fear and the misinformation seems to stem from religion based or purity culture based, which is also attached to the religion base. So when you even think of working in these industries, sex work, being a stripper, phone sex operator. But by the way, I just want to let you know your girl used to be a phone sex operator back in the day, 75 cents a minute. Yeah, 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 yeah. And I used to be a sex toy consultant. And then, yes, my ass got my license and I had to learn the line. And it is a fucking doozy of figuring out how to manage all that, which is another fun ADHD barrier there. I don't even know where the fuck I'm going here for a second, but I think what I'm trying to get back to is like when you think of what you're doing, right? And you
Mhm.
know that it's not technically wrong, but other people do find it wrong. Like, I think for me right now is how is your education helping that? Like, what are you actively doing and how are you actively doing it to help people better become informed and empowered? Because I also heard, and I'm sorry, I asked a question, I'm not even letting you fucking answer it. And then my ADHD brain, hi.
I love it. It's
um,
true.
when you were getting emotional,
Mhm.
I understood that emotion because I can totally understand the empowerment, putting yourself in a vulnerable space, but also being accepted. And,
Mhm.
and I'm sure that there's negative interactions in like anything, but like by a grand scheme of things, like I've heard similar things, like when you are putting yourself in a vulnerable situation where people are enjoying your body as art, it is
Mhm.
not really just all about sex and pleasure. It is fucking art. At least that's how I view it. I don't know if I'm wrong here. Um, but going back to my question, full circle,
Mhm.
how are you shifting the mindsets of people that see this as a negative?
So it's really helpful to have the podcast. Mine is a labor of love. We do have some excellent, amazing sponsors that support us, but it's a labor of love. And the goal is that if someone has a curiosity they're seeking information about, I can say, "Oh yeah, I have an episode for that." And here's a timestamp if you don't want to listen to the whole thing.
Love it.
Right? Because, like people are busy and finding stuff is hard. So I like having, like you seem to, guests that are experts in their profession or their lived experience or, combo of both if they on purpose work with the personal is political kind of thing.
Hmm.
So, yes, I think the emotions come up in the podcast because it can be frustrating to feel like I know the answers to these things if some folks would just listen. Um, in terms of educating, I also 2 days ago, 2 or so days ago, I gave public testimony at a Portland City Council hearing. And, there's probably like 13 people watching that Zoom or that YouTube channel. But maybe it'll be a few hundred at some point when we revisit the issues. Currently, the police are suggesting that we start fining certain local businesses in a prostitution or trafficking hotspot so that the businesses are more likely to report activity to them so that they can, in theory, catch the traffickers. And so I spent time explaining why these businesses might also be endangered or extorted or afraid of more police activity if they say, hey, I think someone's being trafficked. Um, there's a lot of issues. Also, they tend to target people that are poor and visibly like working, queer, people of color, specifically Black, women that are working the stroll. So they ask people to show the idea is that they will also ask people to show their IDs to prove that they're old enough to be out there. So they might have cops engaging with minors and migrants even more. What we see with the ICE brutality and some of the people who choose to do work like this, it's very dangerous. And what I know from interviewing, again, people smarter than me about things in their field, is I know that the second most commonly reported type of police misconduct is sexual abuse, quite often to the people they're interacting with, obviously,
Hmm.
on their calls or when they have free will, willy-nilly to just look for someone. It's just really dangerous for people that we're supposedly trying to help. So anyway, so I explain stuff like this to the council people and anyone who's listening that does want to help. Whereas the police kind of hate that because they want more funding to play their spy games and do their crusades. Because also, when you investigate some of the people who are running these programs, it turns out some of them are religious fundamentalists who, if they're following their rules, they believe that this stuff shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Prostitution shouldn't exist at all. Sex shouldn't exist unless you're trying to make a baby. So it gets very personal and political.
Boring.
I know, and that can be boring. I've
Sorry.
done that kind of sex, and it was so functional. Anyway, yeah, so I speak in public. I do the podcast. I have some really interesting conversations in the strip club dressing rooms, as you can imagine, because I have learned through research that strip club work can be one of the types of sex work where the sex workers are from a very wide and differing socioeconomic demographic.
Mm.
So this is one of those things where you're more likely to have maybe the person who is unhoused and also the person who owns their home and is college educated. Like I have safety, I have resources, I have shelter, I have transportation, I have documents. I was born in this country. I am white. So I have a lot of privilege, and yet I get to hear from people who are navigating quite different things.
Mm.
So it puts me in a position where then professionally I can, again, understand that this is selective, qualitative data. So there are biases, the people who choose to interact with me, the people who can work in the places that I do. And yet I also work at a nonprofit. I'm the current president of Oregon Safer Workers Coalition, which is a 501(c)(3) by and for current and former sex workers and survivors of trafficking. So we give out some direct supplies, so like birth control, emergency contraception, also some overdose prevention stuff, drug screening kits. We provide some free education,
That's
some
amazing.
like exercise, classes, resources. So we're just really trying to like fill the holes where we're at. So that is also another way where I hear from people who are navigating more shit than me, and that's a way I can use my privilege. So
That's awesome. And, I think I'm going to go straight to being like a self-disclosure person here. I just lost my fidget. I'm sorry. I'm
what is
telling you,
it?
it's one of these. And then I have also like different magnet ones because I need variety because you never know where my stimulation needs are. Welcome to my
I'm
show.
loving it. No, I feel so comfortable with you. I think it's great.
And believe it or not, this shit isn't getting edited because the people that listen to my podcast, they also have ADHD. And this right here is the break to the stimulation that just helped the dopamine and all that other fun stuff. So we're good. Now,
Good.
I'm going to be a self disclosure person here for a second because I have never liked this idea that sex work is criminalized. I think it's bullshit. I think it's bullshit that someone is able to go make fucking pies in their house and sell it for no issue, but a person isn't able to sell a hand job or a blow job or whatever other type of job that is sex related. Like, what the fuck? Like, I just never understood that. And I think what really bothers me is that when you take something like pie making, if you will, because that was the first fucking example that popped into my head, you know, you're trusting that they have autonomy, that they have a kitchen, that they have the means to make the stuff, that they know what they're doing, that they've consented, that all these things. So why the fuck aren't we thinking that way logically when we think of sex work?
I was also thinking, did they use proper handling techniques for the food?
There, yeah, right. Like you're trusting them there too. Did they? Were they wearing gloves? I don't know. But like, what the
So,
fuck?
right, these are all good concerns to have. And as someone who has never sold pies professionally, but has sold HJs and BJs professionally, uh, like use a condom and a good lube. Um, Seriously, yeah. Well, and so here's the thing too, like if you don't think that people should be able to pay for sexual services, some of them, many of them, all of them, whatever, whether it's a erotic rub down or a lap dance or a porn clip or a blowjob or whatever, penis and vagina, wherever you think it's okay or not, I'm going to tell you that we know globally for decades via multiple public health organizations like the World Health Organization, ACLU, like the list goes on, citation, citation. I have them on my websites. We know that even if you don't like porn and sex for money, criminalizing it actually makes it more dangerous, increases the risk of STIs, increases the likelihood of sexual assault across the board. This hurts the workers, this hurts the clients, it hurts their family members, it hurts the people they're in relationship, it can hurt people that are adjacent to them. So that's just one of those things that some people don't want to have to hear about and don't want to think about it. I, as a lifelong atheist, was kind of surprised and a little irritated when I heard and have confirmed that research shows that people who are in church or some kind of like spiritual regular gathering tend to report overall better feelings of community and happiness. And I was like, fuck you. No, I disagree. Like, I don't want that to be true because I know that churches can hurt a lot of people too and drive home like biases and control and all the things. Okay. The idea is that I had to wrestle with is like both things can be true. Like, yes, there is harm done in porn, in sex work,
Mm-hmm.
in religion, in schools, in food production, in clothing production. Again, if you want to know about trafficking, the most common types of trafficking, the most common types of trafficking are food production, clothing production, often construction of buildings.
Hmm.
Um, and it's often people who are migrant workers, or, we call them undocumented workers, and people call them illegal aliens. So, a lot of the chicken that's made in this country and the beef, like the processing plants that are close to the border, they do use workers. They pay them like shit. If they get injured or hurt, they don't take care of them and they send them back over the border. Like this is like Tyson does this like regularly.
Hmm.
And they own like 90% of the chicken production in the United States. So, and it sucks. I might have some in my fridge right now. Like, you're not a bad person if you didn't know that. And you're not a bad person even if you knew that, but there's no other chicken to buy because there is limited choice under capitalism. So many things can be true. And that's part of the struggle in navigating things. So I understand when people have knee-jerk reactions to things like porn, sex, religion, chicken, whatever. Um,
Getting freaky over here.
yeah, yeah, you know what? I've dated enough cooks and people who work with food, and like typically, like restaurant settings can be like very unfortunately abusive, and we don't pay people enough, especially
Hmm.
back at the house.
Yeah, fair. But I also think it's interesting too, because going back to like, why the hell do we think it's okay for people to go make pies and sell them, but we find it demoralizing or illegal or wrong for someone to sell sex, right? If it's consensual. Um, I think for me, and it was interesting you bringing up you being an atheist. By the way, I'm an atheist too. And I just want everyone to understand an atheist isn't someone that doesn't necessarily not believe in God. They're just saying that show it and we can believe it. Like that's kind of like, at least that's how I've always interpreted atheism, right?
The one
Um,
I've been told about sounds like he kind of sucks, so I'm just saying.
Exactly. But when you brought up like your struggle when you talk about like community in religious spaces, I think also a lot of the times, and this is like going off the beaten path, but I think it kind of falls into this topic of why so many people see sex work or the industry as just automatically wrong, is because I do believe it's almost forced community by conforming what's the word, conforming, like these are the rules, these are the things that you follow, and if you do them to the T, you'll be accepted and you'll be loved.
Hmm.
And that's not to say all religious spaces are like that, because I have met tons of people who are religious who don't hold that level of like rigidity, that there
Hmm.
is still openness and love to be had regardless. But I do believe in some capacity that that could be a real reason why so many people get community from these spaces, because a lot of people tend to have to surrender to the rules, to the pressure, to the shame that's attached by default from how some people view the Bible. And I don't know if I'm going off on a beaten path here, but that kind of goes back to this idea of sex work and people thinking that it's like horrific. Well, in religion states, you're right. Like there are a lot of rules around sex and what
Hmm.
is okay and not okay. I
Might
I
help you stay in good favor with your chosen man one. Like, oh, if you learn to, please him, then he'll never leave you. Like there's a still that idea of like learn all these sex tips to keep it exciting, and that's like not really the key.
Yeah, 100%. And I think where my head is gravitating towards is, how do we go from like, clearly sex trafficking in and of itself is horrific. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But we also can say that sex work that is consensual isn't horrific, in terms of if you're just like unpacking the layers and what it means for both people. And if both people are happy and they're okay and they're safe, how can you argue? So why are we putting them together? Like, am I making sense with where my head's going?
Yeah.
Do you know where I'm going with this?
Oh, yes. And I'll say so some of the reason, like religion and sex, some of the reasons that people, have erotophobia or phobia of religion, whatever that word is because of negative experiences that they had or stuff like forced upon them. So, I understand being resentful. I understand how a woman, and I've witnessed this, how women are resentful at me because their male partner did something he saw in porn to them without asking, and they didn't like it. It didn't feel good, and that's 100% understandable and okay. But for some reason, it's my fault that he did that because I do that act in porn. Maybe he saw me do mutual choking with my partner, which, by the way, it's the sides, and we're kind of just holding our breath. We're not actually applying pressure to the front, and we're not squeezing that hard. Like we're performing. I do get off on that stuff, but I also need to breathe and see. So if someone sees something that I did in a performance and does it to their partner in real life without checking in or talking about it beforehand, which is what performers tend to do, um, then I understand why someone is going to displace their anger because they're not going to take it out on their partner or be able to address it, maybe by power dynamics or like lack of knowing how to. But it's very easy to be like, fuck you, whore, on a comment of me on my Instagram, or say, like, can you block my man? Here's his account, which I do also get from people sometimes who are having jealousy, distress, and a hyperfixation on maybe me or tracking their partner's porn consumption when there's other issues going on. So I understand the process and I also get frustrated by it because the people who are making porn, we have our own relationships. We are making content for money or fun, sometimes both. usually money. If it's fun, then that's a benefit. It's work. Work isn't always fun. Hopefully, it's the best choice you can make. But in the public council meeting testimony session a few days ago, there is a woman who is a survivor of trafficking. Horrific things were done to her. There's no arguing that. She currently works for the police in one of their programs, which interacts with people that they are trying to rescue. The services we have for these folks in this city are trash. People need housing and jobs. And we don't provide that to them, arguably, on the level that we can and should. So I'm listening to this woman speak. And again, she works with and for the police, for the city. And she said that the youngest victim that they had dealt with recently was a 6-year-old, and that how could anyone ever say that that is a choice? To her, I say, I would never say that that is a choice. That should be quite apparent. And we are both having the same goal, which is to make sure that no one ever sexually abuses anyone, specifically a 6-year-old. And can we please stop arresting the clients who are trying to pay for touch from an adult, which is what you folks, you police, are currently doing. So it is making it harder to address the 6-year-olds in need when you're spending about 90% of your anti-trafficking funding in convictions that result in anti-prostitution. They're arresting men who are trying to pay for an HJ or a blowjay, mostly from adults. They
Now,
net very little trafficking survivors from this.
and what I just thought of is that you were talking about before, like a while ago, like two truths can be true, right? Well, in order for a person to be able to see two truths, they have to hold the capacity to critically think. And I think people these days suck at critically thinking. And I don't think it's necessarily as easy to say is because people aren't taught how to or people don't care. I think it's the easiest thing mentally for people to latch on to one thing instead of the idea that there's potentially other things, because then that means you have to pause, you have to exert effort, you have to exert vulnerability. Do you even have the capacity for vulnerability? Do you have the capacity for the emotional regulation that's needed for whatever the outcome might be for you having to tap into all of this? Like, that's kind of where my head is going with this, because even going back to like the example you gave about people attacking you, you're basically the scapegoat for the individuals that don't feel comfortable to hold accountability and vulnerability that's needed for the individual that it's really about. Because God forbid, if you approach your partner and they're like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm into this, and you're not, well, now you're going to have an uncomfortable conversation. Are you the right fit for one another? And to avoid that altogether, let's just attack the person that you believe is going to be the reason to help you feel better about it. And I'm hearing kind of similar patterns with this idea of sex work, criminalization via sex trafficking, where it's like two things can be true, and you're going to need critical thinking to determine how you approach each of these things. And
Mhm.
it doesn't seem like people want to fucking do that.
Some of the, and you said capacity, and so I think that's a thing earlier. Like when someone has been, they are so traumatized. So again, this woman who severe abuse,
Yep.
trafficking, survived, and now 20 years later works in a program which continues to, in my opinion, and also research shows, make it harder to address trafficking. She's working in the systems that she knows, that she has experienced, that were helpful to her, even in their, own limitations, whatever. So that is at her capacity. And I'm going to speculate based on the interactions I've had and what I witnessed. I'm going to speculate that when you have been through things that are so not consensual and unpleasant, it is very difficult to imagine someone doing similarly and liking it or
Mhm.
tolerating it.
Like you said, capacity. It's a mental, it's not as just simple, like I said before, is you just purposely not wanting to, or you feeling like your thought is the best thought. Like there are so many layers there to the psyche. And honestly, that in and of itself, like you just spoke about, is like the ability to hold space for vulnerability and what it means for dysregulation, regulation of your emotions, and all the other things that come with it psychologically wise. So it's not even just law and stats that we're up against. Because, like you had just said before, and I actually teach human sexuality. So, one of the topics that I have my students do, because I have them do what I call an opinion paper, where I
Mm.
have a topic that I have listed. They can pick if they want, but they got to get approval from it. And then I have them go to the research with an opinion that they have and see if the research supports the opinion or not, and
Ooh,
then write
fun.
about it. And one of the topics is decriminalization of prostitution and sex work. And it's interesting because every student that I've ever had, for the most part, believes that there is harm in consensual sex work and that it should be criminalized. And when they go to the research, it actually shows that objectively speaking, it's actually more harmful, like you said. So
Yeah.
when we think about this, we have the objectivity, but something is still stopping us. And it comes back to the emotions and the beliefs and the values that tend to triumph objectivity. I mean, we see it in policy all the time.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that in and of
Right.
itself is frustrating.
Right. Yes. And this is why, so the emotions that you say, this is why it is very common for people who are working with the police or are the police will use a lot of horror porn to really upset people quite a bit. Like, oh, and it's, and the facts are the facts. Like, if the youngest victim that they interacted with was 6 years old, that is absolutely horrific.
Mm-hmm.
No one is disagreeing that. And also, please don't prime people to automatically like I think what they're doing sometimes is trying to make it so people can't even hear what I'm about to tell them. Right. Yeah. So and that's really, really unfortunate, but it's a tactic that works.
Yeah.
Um, and there was something else. Ooh, I've done pretty good staying on track, but I
You're
feel like
fine. I got a thought that go ahead. Oh, got
oh,
it.
I
Go,
found it. Yeah,
go,
we
go,
found
go.
it. Ooh, light bulb moment. So I think a lot of the reasons that people, your students, are by default tending to think that it's harmful, that transactional sex work, adult consensual sex work is harmful, is because what they've been shown in the media and how it's been presented to them.
Mm-hmm.
And people who control the media are usually, I'm going to tell you, the fucking clients, okay? So, how, yeah. And when you have internalized shame about paying for a service that you've been told is gross, not valuable, sinful, and yet you still desire and are fascinated by it, you're gonna make media about it, but you're gonna make it from your perspective. So, with that lens on things, quite often sex workers in media are the victims or the villains,
Mm.
quite often and historically. There is a great film. Ooh, Whores on Film, I believe it's called. It might have a secondary title, but it was made a handful of years ago by a woman who's in Oregon. I could be incorrect about that part. She was at the time, but Whores on Film, and it examines sex work in film since film started. And I learned that a huge proportion of movies are actually made about or featuring sex workers, but we actually don't really even notice it. And a disproportionate amount of award-winning movies are also about or feature a sex worker of some type.
Mm-hmm.
So we are fascinated, and yet the portrayals quite often are trash.
I think
So,
you're also speaking volume to how a lot of people are always fascinated with the thing that they think they can't have or enjoy. And then there's that shame. And it's like almost like, I don't know if capitalism is the right word here, but I'm thinking of like marketing and the
okay,
psychology
so
behind it.
So what if I told you that someone recently told me that stats on Pornhub said that one of the hottest trends right now is realtor real estate porn, and they think it might be the millennial fantasy of someday owning a home.
That is so interesting, though.
This thing you might never be able to have. Ooh, look, and now the agent wants to fuck you on the counter.
That is so like sexy, hot, empowering, liberating through fantasy. I love it.
Like,
But
okay, I'm gonna sit down and pretend I'm about to own a home and fuck this broad. Fantasy time.
that is just like so okay. This is now this podcast also. This is my brain, sorry, shifting. Um we obviously are here, and I have ADHD. A lot of people that listen to me have ADHD. As we've been talking about every little piece of this landscape, if you will, I'm thinking to myself, okay, injustice sensitivity
Mm,
is a real thing, or
mhm,
justice sensitivity, as some people call it.
mhm,
And as ADHDers, we tend to experience our emotions intensely,
mhm.
especially when we know something isn't right. And not because it's our belief, but literally when we have fucking facts in front of us and still something isn't happening the way it is. So you seem to work and interact in environments and systems that trigger the fuck out of this. Would you not? How the hell are you coping? Because you haven't advised your own history, your own diagnosis, so I don't want to disclose anything. But if you want to speak to that,
These are empty now. I'm sad about it. Um, yes. So thank you. I I do a lot of deep breaths and checking in. And I really, really wonder if maybe I would. Okay, so I've joked that maybe I would be happier selling flowers or something because a lot of my work, yes, it stresses me the fuck out. And I'm like, I was such an introvert kid that barely raised their hand all through the school. How the fuck do I talk to people for a living now? How am I naked on stage? Like, so I think curiosity is a big part of it and capitalism is a big part of it, but also like I'm pretty stressed the fuck out. Like I'm not gonna lie. I'm 39 years old. I feel grateful for everything I've built and the stability that I have and the things that I know. And yet, yeah, I relax my shoulders a lot. I relax my forehead a lot. I try to take full breaths. I do Pilates a couple times a week. Um, when I made the wishful thinking joke about selling flowers to my friend, by the way, she said, "Yeah, but then you'd still have to get up early and compete with all the other flower people that are trying to get good flowers."
truth.
Right. So grass is always greener. And the truth is, like, I think that's just part of the struggle of being alive is just, it's just survival. It's just tough. I've definitely had like 20 minutes sitting before I go into the grocery store, and I don't know what I'm afraid of, but just God, I hope no one talks to me. And that actually hasn't happened for a while. So I think I'm doing better now. But yeah, so I do like very daily effort to keep myself on track. I am not medicated. I am dating someone who does take Adderall daily, so that's been interesting for me to witness because this is the first time that I've been in close relationship with someone who has. I have a lot of timers. I have a lot of lists. I have a lot of calendars. Uh, I also have been working freelance for so long that sometimes I have to force myself to remember the struggles that I had in school and that I had when I worked retail,
Hmm.
nine to fives. And very specifically, like I do when it's good, it's good. I do know when I'm thriving in my ADHD with my sex work. And an example I will give is this was a couple weeks ago and God, I hope neither one of these clients is listening. I was doing a video call with a client on one phone, and I was doing a sexting appointment with another client on my other phone that's in the other room. And the trick is to not let either of them know. And the video client only wants to see certain specific parts of my body, so I could put the camera there. I also have to be mindful because the home I was in at the time was not mine. So there's a housemate on the other side of out there in his room somewhere. So I have to be quiet. So I'm thinking about all these little things and also keeping two very different conversations going because these clients are into different things.
Mm. And I honestly, I'm also hearing how actually this might be more set up for your success than you might be aware, because that is stimulating as all hell. You're filling the gaps of lack of stimulation to keep you going.
Yes,
That's
yeah,
kind of what
because
I'm hearing.
yeah, definitely. And I love that. One of the things, like, again, when it's good, it's good. Like, I feel so calm and in my whole entire body when I'm doing something on the pole, which is taking a lot of my strength and focus, but I'm also paying attention to who's coming through the door. And I can feel the money that just fluttered by my ankles, and I'm identifying where it came from. I know how much time is left in the song, so I know what move I have to hit next. So it's like, bam, bam, bam. This is a beautiful flow state. Yeah, so when it's good, it's really, I'm like, this is why, if folks are interested, there's a ton of sex workers who do identify as disabled, and that includes neurodivergence,
Hmm.
not just chronic illness or mobility issues or other very important things. But it's pretty consistent that I will meet folks, strippers, co-strippers in dressing rooms, and within like a minute or two of talking to each other, I have asked, like, hey, do you know if you're on the spectrum? And the response is either yes, and they're not mad at all. They're like, oh, cool, you could tell. Or two, I'm not sure, but people tell me that. Or three, they're like, oh, maybe they're offended. And then half of that time, they come back to me later and they're like, turns out. So there's a lot of us that are autistic and ADHD in sex work. And I think that's partly because some workplace environments can be very challenging when you have to do one task or, different lights, stimulus, noise, things are happening. Yeah, so that's a double-edged sword again, because there are a lot of people that are disabled doing sex work because of limited options, but we might be able to find ways that we can thrive in them.
Do you also think, and I don't know if there are, I'm thinking to myself, any place that a person works, if they're not working for themselves, might have their own rules, regulations, policies that might interfere with some level of autonomy. But across the board, do you feel with what you've done in your life so far that you hold a lot more autonomy and choice in this career choice or path versus others, especially since you said you've been in freelance for so long? Because where I think I'm going with this question is that I don't think it's just like also it being one task, somebody getting bored. I think there's also a level of accommodation to people who are, neurodivergent, whatever that may look like or be, that environments that allow autonomy instead of rigidity and rules are things that we tend to thrive in. And so
Mhm.
that also makes sense to me too, if that indeed is more likely the type of environment, let's say stripping does or sex work offers, just more of that autonomy, that choice.
Yes, it can be. So the autonomy is definitely one of the best things about like the aspects of it. And again, this is influenced by what kind of sex work you're doing, where you live, who you're working for. Are you dealing with racism, fat phobia? I don't deal with either of those things. So the stuff I deal with is different, but I still have a pretty good amount of autonomy. And I think about that when I am driving myself home at the end of a shift and I get to see the city at 3 a.m., but I also got to see it at 9 a.m. because that's how I make my schedule.
Mm,
Or I think about I am lucky enough that where I work, I mostly can dress myself however I want. There's some shoe requirements in a couple clubs, but yeah, so that feels great as someone who's, worn a uniform and that's cool and reliable too. But if you feel like an artist and one day you want to, dress like a flower, then that might feel great for you. And I witnessed that in other people too, where they're really getting to like express their creativity in ways that they otherwise wouldn't, on webcam, in stripping, in escorting. There's a lot of main character energy sometimes, but it's fun to be around. And I hear from clients that some of them seek out sex workers or goddesses, they might call us, or mistresses, they might call us, from a submissive point of view, mistress, madam, that sex workers tend to be sparkly, interesting women or people. And I take that to mean manic pixie dream girl stuff. Like, oh, you mean that she says weird shit and has quirky little,
yeah,
yeah,
it's so funny.
right? So yes, the challenges to the freelance is forcing yourself to show up, obviously. Executive function dysfunction issues. So, but yeah, it's not like it's all good and easy. Like I said before, I have a lot of lists and calendars and timers. And I also have been like told that I'm teacher's pet. So I think I also just like want to show up and never call out. So I'm kind of a workaholic. But I think sitting still can be uncomfortable. And that's also to say, sometimes it's neurodivergence, sometimes it's undealt with complex PTSD that makes you feel like you can't sit still. It could be a combo of things.
Mm.
But if you are a mover, if you are someone who feels like you need to move, that is energy and you need to find ways to get that out. So try to find healthy ones.
Yeah, 100%. I think also for you, at least the work I do with my clients is it's creating systems that work for you. And just because you have ADHD or autism doesn't mean there's like this one approach that's going to work for you. It's dibbling and dabbling kind of. And then
Mhm.
on top of that, like you said, when the flow is good, the flow is good. But there's also this common thing that happens for us where we kind of operate in seasons where we're going to have good weeks, bad days. And because of those barriers, too, attached to, let's say, executive functioning, if it's not insight in mind, we can't remember it. So when the shit days are insight in mind, it's so easy for us to go down this spiral and really have it then affect us showing up even more when we're trying to show up. Now, with your work though, do you work with people and help people in freelance or even in the industry who have ADHD, have autism, helping them navigate any of these barriers?
And I'm sure you probably know this, but my certification allows me to provide people with sexual health information and
Mhm.
resources. So I can't provide any kind of therapeutic suggestions, practices, anything like that. But we can chat and I can give you my opinion and tell you what works for me or what other people have told me works for them. Uh, so yes, I definitely coworkers sometimes, especially now that I'm 39 and I've been working in strip clubs, like I said, almost 17 years. So you see patterns replicating. And so I don't get in the way. I'm not nosy. I don't want to jump in someone's business. But if I see a coworker struggling with something in particular and they might ask for help, or I see that they might be wanting help, I might suggest to them, like this thing helps me like not lose my money or remember this client's name or, like music themes that might be good for you, whatever. So like if I see someone who's like, I think I need help, then I will give it. And that usually includes stuff that's again, neurodivergent people can notice about each other.
No, that's really awesome.
It feels like the very least I could do because some people helped me. I didn't get a lot of help when I started stripping, but there was a couple people that were very kind. And we all should want folks to be like more capable and comfortable in their work environments. I think everything contributes and will function just better that way. I'm not giving any clear examples because I don't want to out anybody.
100%. I get it. Don't worry about it. I knew where you were going with that.
Mhm.
And I also really appreciated, though, that you said it without saying it, that you stay in your fucking lane. And that is one of my biggest pet fucking peeves is when people don't stay in their lanes when they're treating people as almost if they're like the therapist. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate that you know where those lanes are and that it's really important to disclose what works for me.
Mhm.
I'm providing opinions, but
Mhm.
and then providing what you are credentialed to provide.
Mhm.
And when we think of even ADHD and autism, it's so complex. So
Mhm.
fucking complex. And every situation has its own stressors, your own insecurities, your own history, your own trauma, if you had. And all of that plays a role in how a person is even showing up or not showing up, if you will. And,
Mhm.
you know, to give support or help, it's a very tricky tango, if you will. Um, and I think where my head is going, because I am going off a fucking beaten path right now. Woof! My Adderall is coming out. I'm an Adderall. Yeah, uh-huh.
Yay, cheers.
And I'm crashing. This is 2 p.m. is usually my time that I have to take my second dose.
Ah.
I think because we don't tend to see. Actually, no, I lied. I thought a lot of people don't actually realize that most people that I have actually also interacted in the industry of sex work, doming, and all of that usually either hold some level of master's in social work or hold a PhD in psychology or hold some level of PhD in some level of mental health. So I don't think it's very taboo that you hold certification in sexual education in what you do, but I assume many people think it's an interesting connection. Um, what do you think? So sorry. I'm trying here.
Come
Adderall is
on,
lost.
Adderall.
When you think of everything that you do and what you stand for and what you're trying to do and empowerment and education, what do you think therapists or counselors or other providers, like in the mental health realm, in sex health, all of those things, right? What do you think they need to really better understand about this intersection of, you know, sex work versus sex trafficking, how ADHD or neurodivergence plays a role in any and all of this? Like, I'm throwing a big bomb at you, if you will,
Mm.
because I'm still struggling to figure out how the fuck to word this.
You want to know how people can help?
There you go.
That's what I'm
Thank you,
hearing.
executive functioning.
Yay, we're getting there. That's a great question. So people who work in your field, our fields, any therapeutic provider field, if you have about 17 minutes and you happen to like TED Talks, here's good news. So Juno Mac, Junomac, she has a great TED Talk called The Laws Sex Workers Really Want. It came out about 8 or 9 years ago. I want you to watch this because you will have a better understanding how criminalization impacts stigma, impacts behavior and choices.
Mm.
So if you are wondering, I don't understand why my client would make that decision, and you're not trying to really figure it out, but they have so many different things to navigate than you. So I really, really, really encourage you to, yeah, watch that video by Juno Mac. And then also, the second part of that is please understand that most of the media you've consumed your entire life, not your fault, was not made by people who have done the work.
Yeah.
At best, some media in the last like decade has been consulted on by sex workers, and some of them are starting to make it, but it's small scale.
Yeah.
And I mean, sex workers have always been in art. There's some underground stuff, but largely Hollywood stuff, crap. It's all crap, mostly crap garbage. Don't get in the mindset of thinking of sex workers as victims or villains. People are complicated.
Yeah, I think it's this idea of you can't just assume all New Yorkers are assholes. I'm from New York, right? You have to actually meet the New Yorker and assess, are they an asshole? So when you think of sex workers, you can't just assume they're traumatized or they're bad or they're horrible people or they're being put into a situation that they don't want to be put in. You have to fucking pause and ask.
Hmm. Yeah, or like definitely tip and then don't ask, but we have some good resources for you.
There you go. Fair. Yeah.
I was
Um,
gonna ask if you were East Coast. I mean, I know the time difference, but I love your accent.
Oh,
I,
really? Some people
yes.
say I sound like a chipmunk, and other people say that I sound very cutesy.
Cutesy, yeah, I'll go with cutesy.
I
Yeah.
used to be a good phone sex operator, let me tell you. I
Oh, I was
had
gonna say it's the cutesy, innocent ones that are the real freaks.
it.
Also, the glasses are reminding me there should always be, if you're a stripper out there listening to this, there should always be at least one dancer wearing glasses in the club.
Why?
Because some people are into glasses.
That is so interesting. Do you know I've never been to a strip club?
I don't blame you. And I hear that we have some of the best to choose from over in Portland.
Really? I don't think I care for male strip clubs. I don't know
Like
why.
where the dancers are male.
Yeah, I think it's because I see women's bodies more as an art and something to really just be like amazed by. And I'm
Are you
not saying,
demisexual?
no, I'm not.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I've always, our bodies, like, and I'll never forget when I was going through my own, like, experience of trying to get through my own eating disorder. I'm a binge eater disorder, sober-ish, if you will. I feel like you never get rid of it. There's always those urges, etc. When I was going through my own body image issues, I remember staring in front of the mirror naked. And I noticed that at first, like the first like couple of minutes, like 30 seconds to a minute was the most awkward thing I've ever had to experience. But then I noticed, I was like, oh, look at that. One tit is lower than the other. And I'm like, that's pretty fucking abstract. And then that was when I started recognizing, like, wow, our bodies are fucking awesome. Like, and so I don't get to really see that. I mean, unless I see the guy's penis and I can really look at the difference in terms of how it's shaped. But when I'm looking at a male's body, just like from the middle up, there's not much there for
It's
me
not
to be able to,
interesting to you.
yeah, right? But yeah, I don't know where the fuck that went.
Well, if you happen to make it out this way, there's also, I mean, there's good clubs everywhere. I guess it depends where you are. I hear good things about Pumps in New York. I've had a couple friends work there. I don't know anything about that place, but I definitely, that's a whole other wormhole, I'm sure, about like research and preference for people's different sex, body type, spectrum stuff. Because so interesting for me, the way I relate to that is I have never, ever, ever been interested in muscular beefcake bodies at all, except for the last couple years. And I don't know if it's like a premenopausal thing or my hormones are shifting or my sexuality, but I'm just like, there's a comedian, they go by it's James Tom, and they said that before they started testosterone, which I am not on, but another example, they said before they started testosterone, they thought all men looked like big rectangles, and now that they're on testosterone, they think rectangles are really sexy.
Yeah, I don't I think I've actually not I think I know I've had clients actually tell me that their preferences in terms of the body image has shifted also. And now that I'm thinking about it, if I'm being completely honest with you, and my husband will not take offense to this at all. He is sexy to me. I think he's very sexy. He's like my Thor, like blue collar guy, without the negative politics. And he has a dad bod. And recently, because I've been like in my perimenopause era for the last like almost year now, and it's just obviously getting worse. And I'm finally really exploring my HRT options or any other option, if you will. I've been noticing myself fantasizing, how would that man look if he had a six pack?
It's so
I
weird.
saw that little like shift in that little groin area. You know what I'm fantasizing
Call
about?
it the Ken doll lines because little Ken doll or Barbie Ken dolls, they had those like weird amorphous crotch blurby area, but the
Yeah.
lines went down.
I wonder if
Um,
it's because as we age, it's not as accessible.
I really think I think it's evolutionary where we're gonna not be able to reproduce soon, and so our bodies are like, hey, fertile man, go find fertile man. Your time is running out.
Yeah.
Like, go get one that is full of fresh sperm, so probably in their early 30s, well, mid to late 20s, early 30s. I don't want to fuck someone in their 20s. I'm just saying right now. But that your body is like, go breed. Because again, remember, like female bodies are born with all the eggs they're ever gonna have.
Yep.
But male bodies are generating new sperm every day, day and a half. And as they get older, their ability to generate the fresh, juicy, yum, yum, healthy sperm
Yum
gets
yum.
less. So I really think it's our bodies being like, go find the fresh sperm before you can't anymore.
I almost stimmed the fuck out there because I wanted to go yum 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 yum.
Yum, 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 yum. That's going to be your new stim.
It
I,
totally is.
I don't even have like a sperm or a cum fetish. It's pretty opposite, actually, but that's evolutionarily, I think that's what our cores are saying.
Fair.
And
I'm
no,
not
I'm
gonna
not going to give
deny it.
in.
I'm not gonna deny it. I'm not gonna shame it. It is what it is, and layers, possibilities. There you
Yeah.
go.
Nature, sorry, nature, you're not going to win this one. I had my one baby 13 years ago, and I'm sticking to scissoring vaginas for now.
There you go. Whatever floats the boat.
This was
Now,
so
it was fun, and I also love that there. Again, my episodes tend to not really have a structure whatsoever because that I
who needs
can't.
it?
I can't do it. And I haven't had any complaints as of yet for the people that listen, so we're good. I love the direction that all of this took. We talked about a variety of important things. And at the end of the day, I don't tend to have like my guests like answer a specific question, but thinking about everything that you do, all the things that you have gone through, where your life has taken you from this place to that place, if you could give anybody advice on finding their level of empowerment within their body and their sexuality, and even let's just throw in neurodivergency, do you have anything that you would want to say? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, so I
Mm.
apologize if this doesn't, you know,
Kind of like being put on the spot. Helps my brain think.
there you go.
Think about what you're good at. Think about what you're actually good at and don't be like, oh, I'm not good at anything. Like you're good at something that might be really random and weird, but think about if it's possible to make money off of that. So that is my one career advice thing. Otherwise, be flexible, honestly. Like it's a gig economy.
Mm,
And economists told my generation, I remember when we were younger, that we weren't going to be like our parents and have one career or maybe two our entire lives. We were going to do multiple different things. I remembered that since middle school, and it has proven to be true for me, whether by choice or necessity. So be like water. Think of yourself as adaptable.
I really like that because that I think is the biggest barrier so many of the people I end up working with hold is that this idea that there is this one direction and not knowing what to do when that direction doesn't come to maybe fruition the way you wanted to or not at all. And when you talk about flexibility, fluidity, if you will, it gives you the capacity to be able to hold space to be flexible or adapt, if you will, instead of get stagnant. I
Mhm.
really fucking love that. That was
Good.
good.
Good. That is a be like water is a bit of advice for people that are often out in the streets protesting fascism.
Mm,
That basically means don't get trapped, don't get kettled. If the plan changes, then you got to change too. So be like water. And then also something that I try to do for myself, because like you said before, we have our good days and our rougher days.
mm-hmm.
If I have an open day, I will pick either I'm going to do something to make money or I'm going to do something that's good for me, nurturing wise, otherwise, like
Ooh, I
health or
like that.
social. Yeah. And then,
Nice.
for me, if my goal is to make money and then I can either spend all day working on that and maybe I achieve it, that's cool. Uh, or if I get a client who wants to do a call in the morning, then I make the money and now I can do the other stuff.
I like that. You're not even just also giving yourself flexibility, which, by the way, is supportive to an ADHD brain specifically in terms of pressure and demand, right? But then you're giving yourself variety, variability, which then further minimizes the pressure, which then allows you to show up to what I like to call the fucking pile of laundry on the couch because you feel like you're capable of it. You have a structure in your mind because you gave yourself those options.
And
Fucking
then
love
to the
that.
yay, good. We love to be, I honestly get off on being helpful. So let's do another one. Something that I also find that is helpful. I did this when I was post childbirth and I wanted to, heal my body faster from that. So I would set a 20-minute playlist and I would do my cardio or my stretching for that 20 minutes.
Mm,
And it was songs that I liked. So it was like a way for me to, I'm like, if I can just get through this, listen to this music, then it's done. I also will set a 20-minute playlist and be like, okay, I'm going to try to finish this laundry before the playlist is over.
I like that. You
It
give
makes
your
it easier. It also makes it a game.
It does. And sometimes that works for people and other times it doesn't. So that's okay too. It's about finding what systems and approaches are going to work with you and not against you. And
Mhm.
I love the systems that you've learned in place. And I would assume, this is just my assumption, it's not because anyone sat you down and put you into a how your brain is wired 101 course, but rather through trial and error of figuring your fucking life out from failing, succeeding, having to go through the whole fuck what other people think I should be versus what I need, and then finding ways to implement it.
Yeah, definitely trial and error. And also something I've noticed is that if I notice things that other people are doing that don't make sense to me and I don't think I can't do that, it's not going to work that way for me, then I engineer my own way. And oftentimes people will be like, "Oh, how did you do that? I like that. I'm going to do it too." So, and it's just feel free to think outside the box.
But
Like
I think that
again,
that is the
good at
biggest
things.
thing, right? Being empowered enough to think that you can think outside of the box and understand that if your box isn't, no pun intended,
Your box isn't for everyone. It's okay.
neither is mine. Um, that if your idea or your outside of the box thinking isn't accepted, that's okay too. It then also is a place that gets you to say, wait a minute, is this the right setting for me? Not for nothing, conflict is not by inherently bad. It's needed for growth. Without
Mhm.
it, we're going to be stagnant. So think outside of the box, be daring, be empowered if you can. Like, that's kind of where my mind goes with that.
I just want to give a cute little anecdote. The clients that I've had, some of them for a really long time, are ones that also identify as being goofy, dorky, nerdy, silly people. So, I can mask, I can, pretend to be cool for a certain amount of time, I think. I can get away with it. But when I am my more authentic self, boundaried and mindful. But one time I was standing outside the club. This is downtown Portland outside. It's a ex Ultra Lounge, shout out. And it's like the heart of Portland. There's people like cruising their cars around, there's tourists walking, there's everything's happening. And somebody with like a lowered, like they put a lot of money into this car. I don't know anything about cars, like the paint job and the rims and everything, but they're like revving at the light. And I said, vroom, vroom. And one of the other house girls, she's just like, Elle. Like, I can't help myself. I'm sorry. That comes out. There was a man nearby who thought it was hilarious and then wanted to strike up a conversation because, I guess I was a little more approachable after that manic pixie dream girl moment.
Listen, I relate to that wholeheartedly. I've recently taken a shift on how I'm presenting myself on Instagram and social media.
How's that going?
It's wonderful because it's me. I've always cursed. I'm always a cursor, but like I'm really becoming more authentic with who I am. I'm allowing my silliness to come out and not feel like I have to be this person or specific person in each domain I'm in, especially because I'm a licensed professional and I'm a mom and I'm blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not helpful. And like I even in sessions, like I for instance, I had a session with somebody, and I do virtual sessions, and they were struggling with the Wi-Fi connection, so they kept logging out, coming back in. And on the fourth time that this happened, they logged out, they came back in, and I'm like, peekaboo. And they just looked at me like, I was like, listen, this is what you get. Like, but we
Yeah,
laughed. It was funny. And
you might have needed that.
even in my therapeutic spaces, I'm allowing myself to be more silly and not hold back because I've noticed that it really does help resonate. Not all the time, I'm sure. I can't speak volume to every situation, but just like you, it invites people. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Like, you're going to be silly? I got this. Okay. You can be vulnerable. You're not fearful as much of rejection or trying to be this fucking image that
Mhm.
society has painted you supposed to be.
Yeah, and it's also like maybe we're playing, we're open to having like a playfulness. Definitely, yeah. And also like I chose to look this way. Like I look intimidating to some people, I am told. So I have to be a little more approachable and disarming. When I started stripping, I was 22 and I wore extensions at the time, but like long hair, less tattoos, no boob job. My voice probably wasn't as deep. So it's interesting the people that would approach me then, I'm gonna say older, creepier dudes when I was younger, versus the people that approach me now tends to be more like nerdy tech guys and like the well-meaning like divorcee that's like starting his life over again, So that's another thing too, where yeah, the creeps will go to people that they think they can dominate or take advantage of. So perception is huge, unfortunately, and I think that, that's stressful for people like how am I being perceived? But I remind myself also if you're someone who deals with generalized anxiety or just public speaking is scary to a lot of people. So as someone who gets naked on stage regularly and didn't always plan to do that, I remind myself that people have no idea how I'm feeling. They can only see what they're looking at.
Yeah.
And look how calm and happy I am. We're
Yeah.
masking.
Yeah. Masking. Masking's a doozy, though, right? Like it has its perks, but it also has its downfalls.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So yeah, so we can hopefully, and I encourage people to build the skills to mask when you need to. I know it's exhausting. You might need to do it. Quite often, a lot of us do just, but again, also, yeah, you can hopefully choose when to be your most authentic, silly, goofy, neurodivergent self too, like a little bit. I wish that for you.
Yeah, and I would also even say that the idea of masking isn't just talking about individuals who are either experiencing ADHD or autism. Masking in itself is something that we all have learned to do. It's like the time and the place, right? You're sitting in
Mm,
front of someone that's clearly a fucking asshole, but that fucking asshole also is somebody that maybe you're needing to have a conversation with to help get you to the next step. And obviously, I'm not saying surrender to all toxicity or anything like that. I know that could be a fucking layered example there, but you're not going to be like, wow, you're a fucking asshole.
mhm.
You're just time, place, right? Like, so mask where you have to, unmask where you can, and give yourself space to repair for if you have to
Mhm.
mask more than maybe your body is needing or can handle until you can figure out how to get yourself out of that.
Yeah,
Does that
then
make
we go
sense?
home and it's wiggle time.
Wiggle, wiggle.
Nom nom nom.
Nom, 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 nom. Well, thank you so much, Elle. I am so happy you were here. I'm so happy that this fucking conversation was chaotic, all over the place. This is what I thrive off of. If people want to find more about you, obviously I'm going to put all of your information in our descriptions, but any specific place that you want to give the listeners a go to find you?
Yeah, so look me up on Blue Sky and Twitter at Elle Stanger. Elle Stanger is my handle. I'm pretty shadow banned on Twitter for sure. Dead naming that one till the end of time. Easier place to find me is my website, stripperwriter.com. You can find pretty much all my stuff there. The podcast, the 501(c)(3. You can find my adult content there. I don't make it that hard.
Fair. We
So,
don't need to
yeah.
make it hard to find good content, right?
There's so much good content out there. There's just a lot of good content in general. Lastly, I would say if you're on Instagram, if you're still riding that rodeo as well, I am at Stripper Writer, and the podcast page is They Talk Sex Podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I absolutely loved it all.
It was so fun. I was a little nervous, but this was like one of the best, favoriteest recordings I've ever done.
Yeah, it's just relaxed. I have no direction whatsoever. That's the beauty of it, right?
Cheers. Cheers. There's a little left in this one. Cheers.
Thank you again. Thanks for hanging out with me on ADHD Realities. Hit that subscribe button and share it with a friend who gets it. And always remember, your brain isn't the enemy. Work with it and not against it. Until next time, everyone, be well.